How about your own economic policy? Is this just now a matter of waiting for the lag effects of interest rates and your own policies to kick in here to finish the job on inflation?
Well, let me perhaps surprise you a little bit and comment on what Chair Powell just said in the clip you played, because it's actually
oh my God,
it's very synced up with something we wrote at the Council of Economic Advisors, I think earlier this week or last week. I don't know, all these days blend together. And the idea was that if you see inflation coming down as much as it has, so if you take the CPI headline, it was 9.1% in June of 22, it was 3.1% in November. That's a 6 percentage point decline, 2/3 off its peak. And meanwhile, as Chair Powell said, the job market stayed very much intact. Well, that's not magic. It's not immaculate. It typically means that the supply side improved. And we found in some work that we did at CEA that about 80% of the disinflation we've seen came from supply chain unsnarling, also interacting with the demand side of the economy. And so I think that's an important insight right now when you're trying to understand these important macro dynamics.
A little taken aback.
We're circling this day on the calendar
with the direct references to the words of Chairman Powell. But on that note, he did have a little bit more to say, and I'm not sure that you would agree with it necessarily to the same extent. Just take a listen about what he said about the prospect of further rate hikes and them not totally being out of the question. Here he is.
To tighten policy further, if appropriate. We're committed to achieving a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation sustainably down to 2% over time, and to keeping policy restrictive until we're confident that inflation is on a path to that objective.
So they're still on watch, Chair Bernstein. Are there any factors that contribute to inflation that keep you up at night? Are you worried that we could actually see a reigniting of it? That means the Fed isn't going to be able to turn the other way necessarily as soon as this market might think.
Well, I think we've heard from a lot of forecasters and even some of our own administration officials. I think Director Brainerd and Treasury Secretary Yellen. I myself made a comment earlier this week that if you look at market forecasts, the expectation is for inflation to continue to ease. So that's their forecast, not ours. You'll see ours when our budget comes out. But I think the logic behind that has to do with something we were just talking about. Look, if supply chains stay unsnarled, that means goods inflation should continue to be quite low. And it's been actually coming in at numbers around zero for a while now. Then if you turn to shelter, well, of course, the decline in rental inflation enters the CPI with a pretty long lag, maybe 6 to 12 months. So that's baked in, and that's helping to ease the index. And then we know we've had some softening in the job market, some cooling. We've seen that in vacancies, quit rates, slower nominal wage growth. At the same time, we have a great job market. So if you take all of those factors together, I think they're behind this forecast, one that you saw in the Fed's SEP today as well, of easing prices going forward.
Jay Powell today speaking finally about not breaking the job market. As you've actually told us might be possible here, Jared, are we sure now that we can win the war on inflation without breaking the job market or reversing some of the gains that this administration has taken credit for?
Well, let's talk about this. In some ways, that's the most important question. Let's talk about this from the perspective, and this is very much a Bidenomics focus, from the perspective of working families, of families sitting down at their kitchen table dealing with everything we're talking about, not at the level of the Fed or of macroeconomic indicators, but of breathing room and getting by. Now, if you're talking about actual price declines, eggs, milk, toys and TVs, important this time of year, airfares, cars, gas. Okay, these are prices, not slow, not disinflation here. We're talking about lower prices. So the gas price nationally, $3.12 a gallon this morning. There are 25 states with a gas price below $3. And so that's real breathing room. Now, our work is not done in that space, but maintaining a tight labor market so we continue to see wages beating prices as inflation eases, that is the way forward for the kind of breathing room that this president intends to deliver for working families.
Well, and working families may be starting to see some of those price changes showing up. Certainly, they still have relative security when it comes to their prospects in the labor market. All of these things are true. And yet, Jared, we ask you a different variation of this question each and every time you join us. What's it all worth if the president actually isn't getting much credit for it? With all the good news that you speak of, what is actually left that could turn that around for him?
Well, I think, my theory of the case is that if we continue to maintain our progress in the areas I just described to you, lower prices, not just in the things I mentioned where they're actually coming down, eggs, milk, toys, TVs, airfares, et cetera, but also in areas of healthcare where the president has directly intervened to lower the cost of insulin, to lower the cost of health insurance coverage, to lower the cost of clean energy. That's the path that we need to stay on. We're not there yet, but we're moving in the right direction. But how do we know that? Well, one thing we really need to see is for some of these sentiment indices to reflect that progress. And if you look at the latest UMISH, you see precisely that. Now, it's a preliminary report. It's 439 cases. I don't want to over-torque on that one report. But if you look at that, you saw a very nice spike in sentiment. If you look at job satisfaction, it's up there. If you look at people's take on some of the specific policies I just spoke about, lower prescription drugs, for example, that polls in the 80% range. So I think if you get under the hood, you're starting to see some progress in the right direction in that regard as well.
We were just having a conversation about timing here. Politically speaking, Jared, Michael McKee reminds us that people tend to make up their minds or at least establish their most firm opinions about the economy in the first and second quarters of a re-election year. With that in mind, and you might argue with that proposition, is that enough time to move the needle further on inflation to put your boss in a good position when he goes into an election cycle?
Well, look, I'm not a political advisor. I'm an economic advisor. So I'll leave those calculations to Michael McGee. From our perspective, head down, continue to implement the policies that we've been talking about thus far. Bringing down costs, we talked about some key areas, groceries, I talked about gas, talked about some of the items that are important around the holidays.
Can you get it done in the first half of the year, though?
We're getting it done now. I mean, look at junk fees. The president has launched a really important campaign. If you're out there and you're ripping people off with junk fees or non-transparent pricing, we're elevating that problem and doing something about it. The progress that we've made in prices that you and I have talked about thus far is ongoing progress. So I'm not saying this is something that's going to happen in the first half of next year. I'm saying this is something that's happening now. Okay, inflation is down 2/3 off its peak as we speak today, while the unemployment rate has been below 4% for 22 months running, a 50-year record. So these things are on the books, and we're going to continue building on that progress.